Now this just in, Maryland lawmakers approved bills that allow folks to make their own brownies and concentrates at home. But Maryland wasn't always this chill, because it's only a couple years ago that their rec laws actually came into force. Let's start off right here and take it back to July the 1st, 2023.
Starting on July 1st, so on Saturday morning, we'll be open to patients, so anyone over 21.
Rise, which currently has 4 Maryland locations, Silver Spring, Bethesda, Hagerstown, and Joppa.
What's been selling well?
Is among the dispensaries getting ready for a seismic shift Saturday morning.
You know, this is a really historic moment for us, and we're just really humbled to be a part of this.
And we also have them in 2 different sizes. We have them in the 0.35 as well as the 0.75 gram.
And from here, you have a lot of categories to pick from if you wanted to choose by these.
Rise's website will begin taking over 21 use pre-orders at midnight Friday for sales within the newly legal amounts. For law enforcement, new laws often require educating both officers and the public. Last year, Montgomery County Police began training officers to spot impairment behind the wheel.
This is the educational piece. That
Police Chief Marcus Jones.
Personal use is allowed. You cannot smoke it anywhere, right? So you cannot smoke it in public. You cannot smoke it in a park. You can't smoke it in a car.
Over here you have our edibles.
Of note, you can only buy from a licensed, and you cannot legally take your purchase out of Maryland, including by mail. Products are subject to a 9% state sales tax, the same as alcohol. Legalization could potentially bring hundreds of millions of dollars in annual tax revenue.
Now, one thing we know is that a lot of people get excited when they hear talk about legalization. But something that a lot of people do not necessarily get excited about is when there's no home grow involved in those legalization bills. So I was wondering, are home grows permitted over in Maryland? And just in case you were wondering, this next clip will answer that question for you.
Yeah, a lot of ballot initiatives that could change your everyday life. Katie Barlow tracking those from the newsroom. And really, we see a variety of issues here, Katie.
Yeah, Jim, actually 2 ballot questions that we've been watching closely here at Fox 5 have been called. Let's start with Maryland, where voters have decided to legalize starting next July. It means you'll be able to legally possess up to 1.5 ounces and grow 2 plants. The vote triggers the state legislature to get to work on passing laws that will govern how it's taxed and how it will be regulated. Opponents in Maryland say they're disappointed, calling question 4 deceptive. The group Smart Approaches to Action said many Maryland voters likely thought they were voting to approve adult use, not massive commercialization and pot shops in their neighborhoods. We're exploring legal challenges to this initiative because it was so deceptively written.
So that's pretty interesting right there. The voters have spoken. They made their voices clear. But it still seems that a lot of those ballot questions are so confusingly written. And that's something that's done by design. It's done on purpose to confuse the voters. Now you guys heard it right there for yourselves. Over in Maryland, you're allowed 2 plants as a home gardener. Now personally, I think that's a really low limit, but according to this, it does not matter whether there are multiple people in your house, the limit is still 2. A person who is 21 years and older may lawfully cultivate up to 2 plants in their home out of public view. Likewise, a household may cultivate a maximum of 2 plants regardless of how many persons aged over 21 live in that residence. So it doesn't matter if you and your wife or you and your family live there, or you and your brother and your sister and everyone, you are only allowed 2 plants per household. So drop it in the comments down below and let me know if you guys think that that's a little too restrictive, or if you guys think the 2 plants is an appropriate number. Now like I told you guys, things were made legal over in Maryland back in 2022. That's when the state actually legalized it, but it only came effective on July the 1st, 2023. And it was only at that moment that you were able to legally possess 1.5 ounces or cultivate up to 2 plants. Now fast forward to 2025 and Maryland's lawmakers have taken it a step further as they approve bills to allow adults to make their own brownies and concentrates at home. Now before we dig into that, just a quick reminder guys, if you're getting value from this video, please do like, share and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support us further, join the ICANN VIP Bean Club or cop some merch from the merch store. So like I said, at least in Maryland, it seems like lawmakers are on the right track. And that's evident from right here where you guys can see lawmakers have actually approved this bill that I was talking about when it comes to the brownies and the concentrates. But before we get into that, I want to actually bring some attention to something that happened a few months back, and that's where over 175 convictions were set to be pardoned. Check this out.
That executive order would pardon 175,000 convictions. We know Baltimore City makes up about 1/4 of those convictions. The governor's move will impact roughly 1/2 100,000 people, and these are folks with low-level possession charges. Some of them have multiple charges. The governor's office calls this the largest state pardon to date. Now, this applies to folks convicted before January 1st, 2023 for misdemeanor possession, misdemeanor use, or possession with the intent to use paraphernalia. According to the National Organization for the Reform of Laws, 9 other states have made similar moves, but only Massachusetts has taken pardon action on this scale. The governor's office says Maryland is the first state to take action related to paraphernalia convictions. This all comes after Maryland voters approved a constitutional amendment to legalize statewide.
So that definitely shows signs of being on the right track. The largest state pardon in history. Let's hear what the governor had to say about that.
The criminalization of harmed low-income communities and communities of color in a profound way. We want to make sure that the legalization lifts those communities now in a profound way.
And the governor hopes this pardon action helps to close the racial wealth gap and promotes equity in the criminal justice system. The governor is scheduled to speak here at the State House at 9:30 this morning before he signs that executive order alongside Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown. And once the governor signs that executive order, the judiciary will update electronic dockets. That process will take roughly 2 weeks. We'll have more information on this entire situation after the governor speaks and signs that executive order again at 9:30 this morning.
So by now, that executive order should have been signed and over 175 convictions should have been pardoned over in Maryland. Kudos to the governor on that. Now let's hop right into this bill where the Maryland lawmakers approved bills to allow folks to make their own brownies and concentrates at home. Now, a lot of people may think that if your state legalizes rec, then you may be able to just make brownies at home. But what the state wanted to do in this situation is make it really explicitly clear. And I quote, according to this article, while the state's laws already allow adults to cultivate their own plants, the legislation would expand their options to account for non-flower products that can be made at home. Now, it's not just limited to brownies and making stuff like that at home, but it's also when it comes to concentrates. A lot of you guys know people don't like any butane, stuff like that in their concentrates. The extraction methods are really important. That's why some people wash their flour rather than using other types of extraction methods. Now, according to this, the measures under the new bill will continue to prohibit the use of volatile solvents used to create concentrates. And that includes solvents like butane, propane, and ethanol. All these things are used to extract cannabinoids and terpenes from the plant, and a lot of people use those things to create concentrates such as BHO or PHO. Butane hash oil or propane hash oil. Now those things usually require specialized equipment and safety measures, and that's why a lot of people will say back in the day when people were trying to rig their own systems in their house, there was a risk of blowing up your entire house. Now some of the types of concentrates that you get from these types of methods include things like BHO, PHO, both of which we already mentioned, but also shatter, wax, crumble, and butter. And like I said, a lot of these hydrocarbon solvents like butane and propane are highly flammable and explosive, and those are really risky, so you gotta handle them with care. And back when I was doing research into extractions and different types of methods, there's open loop and closed loop systems. The open loop systems are basically where the solvent is simply blasted over the material. It's extremely dangerous and should be avoided, but the closed loop systems are safer and require specialized equipment and blast proof environments. You basically close that loop. So personally, I think that's some really good news. And truth be told, a lot of people don't like these volatile solvents in their products anyway. And it's really great to see that Maryland is stepping up and taking notice of some of these stuff. And going back to this article, and again, I quote, "The herb is legal in Maryland. It should not be a crime to produce tinctures, edibles, and other products for personal use at home. It's not only cost effective, but also cuts down on traveling costs to go to faraway dispos, especially for rural Marylanders." So all that said, let me know what you guys think about that. Drop it in the comments below. I'm really interested to find out what you guys think about this. Now, while Maryland seems to be taking steps forward, Alabama seems to be taking steps back, as they want to put hemp back on the list of controlled substances, which is absolutely crazy. But don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself, because that video is coming up right now.